Hey, what's up everyone, it's Yuma here. Today I'm going to be showing you a guide on how to kill the King Black Dragon. Just before we get into it, a little side note, anything in this guide is just recommendations, so if you have slightly different equipment or different inventory items, then that's totally fine. But this is just what I recommend for you when you're starting out at King Black Dragon. So yeah, without wasting any more time, let's get into it. So to start off with recommendations, 65 plus combat, 65 plus defense, 43 plus prayers, 43 plus so you can use the basic protective spells. If you've got high enough, then soul split. 65 plus armor and 70 plus weapons, just so you can defend yourself and deal enough damage to kill it, but gonna be honest, you could probably kill it with your fists. Dragonfire protection because you are fighting a dragon. Poison protection only because one of its attacks does poison damage, but not a lot. Slayer helmet, if you've got it, it just increases damage when you're on a slayer task to do with black dragons. A combat familiar, so like a Ripper demon, Calgarian demon, Blood Reaver, Steel Titan, anything like that. War Tortoise, if you've got a low summoning level. The Dragon Slayer perk, if you've got it on one of your items, that just increases damage by 7% when you're fighting dragons. And lastly, if you do take the route of the King Black Dragon through the wilderness, you will get a 10% damage increase. You just got to be careful because there might be other players in the wildy along the way. So onto equipment, I'm going to start mid tier and then work my way up to high tier. I'm not going to do low tier because I don't feel like you have to make your life harder than it is by struggling with low tier equipment. But of course, if you can't afford mid tier or higher tier armor, then that's totally fine because my high tier armor only consists of tier 80 items. And I feel like tier 90 armor is a bit overkill for King Black Dragon because the upkeep of the equipment isn't worth the rewards you get from the dragon itself. So for mid tier melee items, I've got Obsidian Cape, Amulet of Fury, the Asylum Ring, the Quiver, any tier is fine, a Dragon weapon and a Dragonfire shield to protect yourself from the Dragonfire breath, an Ancient Book just for the little prayer increase, and then tier 70 armor, Banados, helmet, chestplate, gloves, tassets and boots. For range mid gear, basically the same with the cape, the necklace, the ring and the quiver, but change your weapon for an armadillo crossbow, change your shield for the deflector version and keep the book, and then for the tier 70 armor change it for the range version so you're going to be wearing armadillo. And lastly for the mage gear, for the mid tier, exactly the same cape, necklace, ring and quiver, but change your weapon for a master wand, change your shield for the walled version, keep the book, and then because you're wearing mage gear, the 70 tier armor is subjugation. So onto the high tier version of the melee gear, I've got a kiln cape equipped, so the melee version, Amulet of Souls, normal version is fine but I've got the ornament one equipped, Ring of Death, any tier quiver. For the weapon I've gone with a Noxif, an ancient book, but you can wear a god book. Then I recommend tier 80 armor, so Torva, but replace the gauntlets for Razorback and the boots for Steadfast. Onto the range gear, change your cape for the range version of the kiln, keep the necklace, the ring and the quiver the same. Change your weapons for Ascension, so you got main hand and offhand crossbow. Your god book doesn't matter unless you're going to use it, but I've gone for Book of Wisdom. Then for the tier 80 armor, go with Pernix, but I recommend changing the gloves for Ascension and the boots for Flare Frost. And lastly for the mage gear, I recommend you changing your kiln cape for the mage version. Keep your necklace, ring and quiver the same. Change your weapon for a Nox staff, you can keep the book the same. And then for the tier 80 armor I've gone with Virtus, but changed the hand wraps for Celestial and your boots for Hellfire. So now on to inventory. For the mid tier, I recommend 2 super anti-fire flasks, 2 super prayer renewal flasks, 4 super restore flasks, and any type of food, but I've gone with blue jellyfish. A combat familiar and some scrolls to help you in the fight, so I've gone with a war tortoise. If you have augmented your equipment, then I recommend some equipment siphons, just so you don't have to leave your instance and you can just reset and carry on with the fight. An enhanced Excalibur for the health restore. Any tier spring cleaner is fine, it's just always useful to have one on you because it can break down certain items, it can alchemize it into coins or break it down into components. And lastly, an Elven Ritual Shard, which basically does the same as an Excalibur, but it restores prayer instead of health. And lastly, onto the high tier inventory, I recommend 2 Searing Overload Potions, 2 Super Prayer Renewals. I've gone with 4 Super Restore Flasks, but to be honest, 1 or 2 might do you just fine, especially if you use an Aura Light Penance, because you're not using as many prayer points, which means you're not drinking as many Restore Flasks. I haven't gone with any food, but just to be on the safe side, maybe you want to bring 1 or 2, but if you're using Soul Split, you won't need food because it will just heal you up with that. I've gone with Steel Titan, Pouch and Scrolls for the Combat Familiar. The equipment siphons are the same with the Excalibur, the Cleaner and the Shard. And again, I haven't got any anti-poison because the Soul Split will just heal you up quicker than the poison will drain your health. So now we've got all of that out of the way, let me show you how to get to the King Black Dragon. There's 3 ways that I know of getting to him. One of them does involve the wieldy, so do be careful of that. So let's get into it. So the easiest way to get to the King Black Dragon, open up your map and use the Edsville Lodestone. If you haven't got it activated, then go to the Grand Exchange and take the northwest shortcut underneath, and then just go northwest near the Wilderness Wall, and you'll end up right outside the King Black Dragon instance, right here. The second way of getting to the King Black Dragon is opening up the map, and where the first instance location is, you want to trail yourself up the wilderness path like this, and the dungeon entrance is just here. The King Black Dragon is inside. The quickest way is to use these obelisks. There's one just outside. The lodestone you want to use to get to this one is just there. Sometimes that one isn't activated, so you can go to that one just there. So click on the lodestone, click yes. Remember, you are going into the wieldy, so be careful with what you bring. Click yes after that, and it will teleport you to the lodestone. Once you're in the wildy, if you look northeast, you will see the obelisk over there, and sometimes the one behind you will appear. And so make your way over. There's 2 options. You can use the normal teleportation option or the choose destination option. If you just use the normal and get in the middle, it will teleport you to a random place in the wilderness. So you end up not that far from the first one, to be honest. But if you've completed the hard task of the wilderness set, you can choose the destination yourself. So the one you want to go to is level 44, get yourself in the middle, and it will teleport you just outside the gate and the ladder going down to the King Black Dragon instance. So make your way to the east side, go past these monsters and enter the gate, then make your way down the ladder. Then just behind the ladder is a little rock you want to jump over, and it will stop the spiders from attacking you, and the instance is just in front of you. A little note is, if you do use this artifact, the whole fight will give you a 10% damage increase. Just be careful of the wieldy because of players. Okay, the last way of getting to King Black Dragon is by teleporting to Wall Retreat, which is just in your teleport tab. If you haven't unlocked the teleport for this place, there is an easy way to get here. So just outside, you want to go to the Draenor Lodestone, just here, and then literally just walk around, and the teleport to get in is there, and the Death's office is just next door. So there are a few things I want to show you. In War Shop, there are a few things like the Altar of War, which will help you restore all your summoning and prayer points, just over here. Different tier bonfires, which will give you a little health boost before you go in. It lasts around 60 minutes. And the adrenaline crystals, which you can use just before entering a boss fight. There's one here and one here. So if you make your way down the stairs, there are a few portals, and these will take you into the boss fight, but in order to use the portal you have to kill the boss at least once. So if you're starting out new to a boss, you can't use it just yet. And each boss has a fee to unlock the gate, but once you've unlocked it, you can go in there as many times as you like. So basically you charge up the crystal until you reach 100% adrenaline, and then you go into the portal and then you start the fight. It's as easy as that. So now you know the different ways of getting to King Black Dragon, let's get into the fight. So if you haven't unlocked the portals yet, what you would do is make sure your prayer and summoning points are topped up, and then warm your hands up on this fire to get the health bonus. Then what you would do is teleport yourself to Edgefield. So when you're in Edgefield, you want to go northwest to the artifact, and just before you go in, you want to make sure you get your combat familiar out, add the necessary scrolls to the familiar, just to prepare yourself before going in. Click the artifact, press instant encounter, and then make sure you have these 4 settings like this. And then once you're ready, you want to press start, and you'll enter the boss fight. So the first thing you want to do is make your way to the north side of the arena, drink yourself a Searing Overload or an Anti-Fire and a Renewal Flask, turn on your Soul Split or Protective Prayers. I would use Mage or Range, and to help you out even more during the fight, go onto your auras and click the penance one. That just keeps your prayer up, which means you're not drinking as much restore flasks, and that's just one less thing to worry about. So the fight itself is pretty easy. You just stand in one spot, and if you're using range or mage, then you just have to counter its attacks like this. Also make sure your revolution bar is set up to the right combat style for more DPS. I forgot to set it up here. And that's basically it. The different attacks that King Black Dragon has are normal Dragonfire, which is just its standard attack. It has a poisonous Dragonfire, which does a small amount of poison damage to you every now and then over the course of a few minutes. It has a freezing Dragonfire, which just binds you in your spot for several seconds, and a shocking Dragonfire, which just lowers your stats and drains a bit of your stamina. Once the fight is finished, you can use some adrenaline store abilities just to keep your adrenaline up, so when you go into the fight next, you might have enough to initiate a threshold or an ultimate straight away. Or you can just use the remaining adrenaline just to restore a few health points with the regeneration ability. So a quick tip, if you don't have a penance aura, you can use a vampirism, and that basically does what a penance does, but instead of restore 5% prayer every hit, it restores 5% health. And you really don't need to worry about anti-poison when you fight this boss, especially if you use Soul Split, because you regain more health when the poison hits you, so it's nothing to worry about there. But that's basically it for this fight. There's no mechanics whatsoever. The only thing you do need to worry about is when you drink your flask at the beginning, to not forget to drink your flask when they run out, because if you don't have any anti-fire protection, this boss will hit over 3k damage and wipe you out in a few hits. And I know this from experience because I've AFK'd this boss and gone to do something else and forgot to flask up, and then I end up back in Edgefield or in Death's office. But yeah, I will leave a few more tips in the description for you. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.